Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to my first ever and probably only episode of game types. So, what are game types? What does that even mean? Well, in Diablo 2, when you're searching through the list, you will often come across many different game types, and these game types usually have a very specific purpose. That very specific purpose is rather interesting, and I'd like to go over each one of those game types with you guys and talk about them. And after we've talked about them, I'll probably go through the process of looking through here and seeing if I can find specific types of those games. The first game type that we're going to talk about is the game type known as walking. Now, walk games are pretty straightforward, and quite honestly, if you don't know what a walk game is at this point, you're probably the problem. I hate to tell you this, because a lot of the times what will happen is people will join a walk game, and then they will proceed to rush the players in it. Now, if you have a walk game, it usually is something like this, like Act 1 Walk, or perhaps something a little bit different like Normal Walk. Usually, what this means is that the group of people that is in this game does not want to be rushed. They do not want you to give them waypoints. They do not want you to drop them an insanely large amount of equipment, overpowering their character to 9,000. Walk games are generally about actually playing the game. So when you participate in a walk game, know that you are walking. You are walking the entire way. If you're starting in Act 1, you're starting at Bloodmoor, you're going to Cold Plains, you're going to Underground Passage, then Stony Field, then Underground Passage, then Dark Wood, then Black Marsh, and so forth and so on. And walk games usually also do all of the side quests as well, which means you're going in, you're killing Bloodraven. You're also going to go kill the Countess, and you're going to go grab the Imbue quest. And honestly, walk games are my personal favorite. I can't count how many times I've made a walk game, told everybody that we're walking, and then somebody comes in and tries to rush us to the end. The next game type, which is a very interesting type, is enchant games. So, what is an enchant game? An enchant game is literally a game type where you join, and a sorceress, who is a rather high level character, will be there ready to give you enchant. Now, enchant at low levels is relatively unimpressive. However, enchant at higher levels is actually kind of insane, and will give you massive fire damage and attack rating. So when you have an enchant game, basically what the goal is of enchant games is everybody joins the game, and the sorceress is usually sitting in town. And you ask for enchant. You can utilize things like Ravenclaw, which will work very well with enchant. But for the most part, you're just an overpowered, ridiculously crazy character. You're not rushing because nobody's giving you waypoints and telling you where to go or clearing stuff for you. But neither are you walking because, well, walking would involve you actually doing things on your own. You are basically doing things on your own with the power of, like, literally Ifrit himself in your hand, doing like 4,000 fire damage per shot or per attack in, usually like Act 1 normal or, like Act 1 nightmare. And these enchant games literally just give you the ability to just power through everything. Essentially almost like a cheat code, so to speak, where you can just go through the game and not have to worry about anything. Now, the thing is that once your enchant wears off in these enchant games, usually you don't do so well because without the enchant, you suck. I usually don't like to participate in these enchant games because I feel like they give you a false sense of how your character's doing. So like when you join the enchant games all the time, you don't really know like how the hell you're, like what the actual power level of your character is, where you belong, like what you're capable of. You just blow through everything. The next type of a game is the rush game. Now, this one is not to be confused with the G Rush, which we will cover later, and I will talk about the differences between them. But a rush game versus a G Rush game is the difference between a character who is actually trying to function versus a character who is not. All right. The rush games usually involve a character who has been built or is being built, and is anywhere between the levels of like 10 to 50 or maybe even 60, and they've given up on the game for some reason and they want to rush. Or maybe they're going through a particular act, like Act 3, and they would prefer to be rushed through Act 3. Like a very common one might be, like Act 3 rush please or something like that. Or you see here we got rush me for gear. They're trying to pay for the rush. We've got various game types throughout here which are going to kind of tell you that it's a rush game. This one here is a walk game, so Bale Walk. This is an EXP game. So a very interesting modifier there on an EXP game, which is another type we'll be covering. In general, rush games usually involve the process of giving the players waypoints, helping them to get their bosses, the quest items, and getting them through the difficulty setting as quickly as possible. This does not necessarily mean that they're not leveling up along the way. They may be with you while you're rushing. They may be right behind you. It could be considered more of a power level than a rushing, but it is kind of like a mix of a power level and a rush together. The next type is the G-Rush. Now, what is a G-Rush versus a rush? The answer to that question is a G-Rush is usually something done far in advance. I'm going to clear my chat real quick. Tired of seeing that stuff on my screen. So a G-Rush is generally something that's done from level 1. If you're going to G-Rush a character, the character is usually not involved in leveling in any way, shape, or form. They usually just sit in town waiting for the characters to do everything for them. So you have 2 participants, basically, or more in a G-Rush. One is the person getting G-Rushed, who is usually level 1 and useless. Number 2 is the person doing the G-Rush. That person is actually going to be responsible for killing and doing pretty much everything, including telling the person who's level 1 to come and grab, the amulet, giving them a portal so they can stand safely in Diablo's realm, and so forth and so on. Now, G-Rushes often incorporate a third party, which is neither the rush-e nor the rusher, and this is what's called a bumper. The bumper is usually the correct level to complete the normal and Nightmare Ancients quest. And the reason why this is because when you're the correct level to complete the normal and Nightmare Ancients quests, but you haven't actually completed those quests, you can bump the person past those quests. You can also bump them past Bale as well, which is also another way of doing it. So basically the goal of this is to get a level 1 character to basically Hell Act 5. They cannot participate in like Bale runs because the Ancients quest in Hell difficulty cannot be bumped, basically. But it doesn't really matter because they can still do Hell Chaos and they can do all sorts of the terror zones now too. So the Bale runs are not even really the most important thing there. But at the heart of what the G-Rush is, the G-Rush is literally getting a level 1 character into Hell Act 5. That is exactly where the character stops. Once they are there, they can then proceed to mooch off of all the other players for EXP. Because that's literally all they're capable of at level 1. Next on the list is one of my other favorites, which is the Split MF game. Now, the Split MF game is something that I had concocted a long time ago, and it seems to have caught on, or maybe everyone just thinks alike. Could very well be that as well. Split MF games are often seen either in public or in private, one or the other. It doesn't really matter. When I was filming this earlier, there was a Split MF game up there, and I was hoping that it was still active. But basically, what a Split MF game is it's the ability to obtain players 8 drops. I know that player 7 is the highest, but basically what you're looking for is you're looking for other like-minded people to come into your game and fill positions for whatever reason that they want to. There's one right there, AM Split MF 01. So the goal of a Split MF game is to fill the game. And everybody does a different task, okay? Doesn't matter what it is. You don't generally go with the other person when you're doing split MF. So one person will be doing Anti, another person will be doing Travancore, another person may go kill Shank, Eldritch, and Pindle. Like somebody might go kill Bale, somebody might do a Chaos Sanctuary, Seal Pop. There's various things that can be done, various places that you can go. You don't necessarily have to be magic finding for a split MF game. You can be EXPing. Getting players 8 EXP is also a very good way to do split MF games. I do split MF games a lot on my stream when people are, when we have bad terror zones. That's actually a pretty common one. And, like for instance, when it ends up as the Bloodmore, it's actually a pretty good place to split MF. So if you can get 7 other people in your game doing whatever else they want to do, you can go into Bloodmore and kill some monsters by yourself and get decent EXP from the player's 8 modifier. Now, when it comes to split MF games, though, they need to be relatively fast. So, like, a Trav runner might not necessarily want to stick around for that long, if they're doing quick Trav runs. So you are going to go quicker than you would otherwise in most other games. I think the basic amount of time that most people would agree for a split MF is at the very bare minimum a Chaos Seal Pop by a relatively good player. Chaos Seal Pop is like the bare minimum amount of time that you should have a split MF game up. Maximum amount of time would be something like a Bale run. I think a Bale run is probably about the equivalent. So generally, by the time a person has completed a Bale run, killed Bale, the next split MF game should be made, and everybody joins that game. And the goal is that you continue to join, keeping that player count up. High player count has a huge impact on things like rune drops, magic finding, no drop rolls, all sorts of very interesting things that magic find affects. And if you magic find in a player's 8 game versus a player's 1 game, you will get a much larger drop and much better EXP in general in these types of games. Another type of game is the EXP run. So EXP runs are one of the most basic form of game types out there. In the past, EXP runs usually involved something like Trist Run 01, or like Chaos Run 02, or Bale Walkin' 03, or something along those lines. And I could literally go through here right now, and I guarantee you I could find some EXP runs. There's one right there. Bale KB 32, Bale 09, Bo Bale 01. These are EXP runs. EXP runs are very, very simple runs, and honestly, there's really not a whole lot that goes on with them. You join the game, and usually with EXP runs, someone is usually teleporting the correct area that you're going to be EXP running at, unless there's a waypoint directly there. Like, for instance, with the new Terror Zones, Worldstone Keep is absolutely amazing EXP, so you don't teleport to Bale's throne room, you just do the entire thing. Whereas when you're doing Bale runs, specifically, Bale runs are, usually teleport to the throne room, so you wait in town for the portal. With the Terror Zones, though, I've noticed that there's been a lot of new EXP zones, and they change, obviously, every hour. So, obviously, Cal level could be an EXP zone now very, very well with the new Terror Zones. We got Chaos, you've got Worldstone Keep. Act 2, Loot Go Lane Sewers is really amazing for EXP as well. Don't sleep on that one. Neilthak's Temple is pretty good for EXP. There's actually a couple really good zones for EXP now, and with the Terror Zones have become a new way to EXP, especially once you get past level 95, which is where things get really hard, and Bale runs tend to give you junk EXP by comparison to the Terror Zones. EXP runs don't really have any hard and fast set rules other than usually you hang out with the group. You're usually doing a specific task, and once you do that specific task, they make the next game. That's why we have right here Fan Chaos 02, and then when they complete this, it will go to 03 and 04 and 05. This one is at 14 so far. And the goal of these is to get as many people in there as you can. I could kill Diablo by myself. I could kill Bale by myself. It's easy. That's not the point. The point is to get that player, that sweet, sweet player's 7 EXP, which is player's 8 EXP, which is where things get juicy. The player's 8 EXP is the whole reason why you do these games. So you're trying to fill them, and you're trying to fill them as fast as possible, and obviously complete the EXP run and move on. This one right here looks like it just ended because it went to 0 players. So if I were to join this one, probably I could just guess and say that it's Bale KB-33. And just like that, we are now in the next EXP run. And I mean, there's really not a whole lot more to go over with these. It's really just as simple as join the game, figure out where they're EXPing. So this one is Throne of Destruction. Go to the area where that is, look for a portal, usually to the Throne of Destruction. And once you're in the Throne of Destruction, profit. This one looks like it's probably a bot run. I would guess. Bale runs are pretty simple. I mean, you do the waves, you kill Bale, you leave, you rejoin. You do the waves, you kill Bale, you leave, you rejoin. Really not a whole lot more to this other than that. And Bale runs are like the quintessential EXP run, but thankfully due to terror zones, we have so many more options now, and you don't have to go through this boredom for the rest of your life. So if a nice terror zone, a nice juicy terror zone does pop up, I mean, it's definitely worth your time to do the terror zones, because they have so much better EXP now than a Bale run does. And when Worldstone goes, Worldstone is by far the best, like just in general. And I'm not even talking about the waves. I'm talking about running Worldstone Keep. Level 2, level 3, even level 1 if you want to go backwards. And Throne. All the monsters in here are absolutely amazing for EXP when they hit the terror zone. Especially when there's beetles. Oh god, the beetles are such good EXP. Swoop their loot. Demon head! Oh, I didn't get it. Alright, the last game type, and this is kind of a complicated one that we need to cover, and of course Bale is still screaming. This one is trade games. So trade games can be found usually all the time, everywhere. Alright, trade games are something that you can see on the list at any given time, and I'm going to explain to you how they work. Generally, the item that the player has is listed first. Then the item that the player wants is listed second. That is two hard and fast rules when it comes to trade games. So this one for particularly here is pull for 2 keys. So he's offering the pull, and he has 2 keys. He's talking about the obviously the terror keys, destruction keys, or hate keys. Now, depending on which one he has, it might be a good deal or a bad deal. Pull for 2 terror keys is probably a halfway decent deal. Pull for 2 D keys is a terrible deal, and I wouldn't take it. Now, going through the list here, we have GORE's FT. So FT is a acronym that means for trade. So you want to remember that one. FT equals for trade. That's very important. So if you see FT, then they're saying that they have it and they want to trade it to you. The other acronym that is often used a lot is LF. LF is looking for. Looking for just is something that you would type if you do not have the item, and you are trying to get your hands on it. So, for instance, if I wanted to make a game that would be, like say, for instance, I wanted a pair of Gore Riders, but I don't have them, I would make a game. LF Gores would probably be a good title. So looking for Gores, and then people would join who have Gores. I could also make several other types of games, like I could say Perf Maras for trade. So I have a perfect Maras for trade. Another acronym that is very commonly used is SCRIP. So script means description. And due to the relatively small amount of space we have here, you're going to see a lot of abbreviations. Okay, this is important because the abbreviations are telling you what you need to know. So if I put script and then I type something like script for Aki or something like that. Basically, what it's saying is that I have something special that can't really be typed in here. So you have to look in the game description, and I might have something like plus 2 Jav 20 IAS 24 MF gloves. All right, and then when I create the game, you're going to see script for Aki, and then you're going to look in the description of the video. Now, how do you look in the description? Or sorry, the video. I make a lot of videos. The description of the game. How do you look in the description of the game? You go to the players here, and it will usually have a description. Now, let me see if I could actually find a script game. They're usually not up this early in the morning, but I mean, in the meantime, we can go over a lot of these. So this guy says 2 SKL marrow for pull. SKL is skeleton. Marrow is marrow walks for pull. So he has a +2 marrow walks for a pull rune, which is a pretty good deal. We have O pull for low Annie. Not really kind of sure what the O means for the abbreviation there. Feel free to type it down in the comments if you know. Sir for staff description. Here we go. So let's take a look at the description. 3 energy shield, 5 socket staff. Not really. What is memory? Is memory 4 or 5 sockets? Memory. I can't remember if memory is 4 or 5 sockets. Memory is Lum IO Soul F 1 2 3 4. So this guy has nothing. A 5 socket 3 energy shield staff is worthless. So he doesn't know what he has basically. It needs to be a 4 socket staff for memory, not a 5 socket staff. And it would need to be a 6 socket staff for obsession. And I don't really know what the hell you would use a 5 socket staff for. Sometimes you run into stuff like this where people where you're not really sure what the hell's going on. Here's another one right here. See, LF Aki. So he's looking for an Aki. So if you had an Aki and you saw this game, you might join and see what he has to offer. You don't know what he's offering because it's a very generic game. This guy has a dragon scale for trade. See, dragon scale for trade, FT. Gold wrap for key. So he's offering a gold wrap and he wants a key. 2 Vex runes for a S torch. Now, S torch is referring to a sorceress torch. You're going to see this often. And basically, this is always going to indicate the class of the torch. So if you see P, it's going to be Paladin. If you see D, it's going to be Druid. If you see B, it's going to be Barbarian. A is Amazon, so forth and so on. The only one that gets a little tricky is the Amazon and the Assassin, which I can't even remember what the abbreviation people use for the Assassin torch. I think it's just AS torch instead of A torch, or AM torch instead of A torch for Amazon. But a lot of the times people aren't searching for Assassin torches anyway. Here's a conditional one. So this one is 40 P gems for a Malrune. So he's offering 40 perfect gems. Now this is a wild card here because you have no idea what perfect gems he's offering. They could be a mixed batch. It could be one particular type. Specific perfect gems have higher value than others. So for instance, amethysts, rubies, and in my opinion, the emeralds have a much higher value for crafting because there are some really good crafting recipes for those particular gems, whereas diamonds, topazes, and sapphires have less or none good recipes. The only good recipe I know for the sapphire is the knockback gloves, and they're very specific to ranged classes. And as you go through here, you'll find all sorts of interesting traits, like Gull for Istmal. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. Some of them are absolutely terrible trades. This one right here is a trap GC for a MA GC, which is probably one of the best trades I've ever seen. Most people do not want martial arts grand charms, but they do want trap GCs. Trap GCs are usually far more valuable than martial arts grand charms. So this particular trade is very much so in the favor of the person joining, not the person who's doing the trade. And very often you will find trades like this that are very much so one-sided trades. This is another split MF game right there, so that is definitely a good game to join if you want to do some split MF. And I would encourage everyone to take advantage of the split MF games because it really, really works very well. This is a help game, and I actually didn't put this on my list. So help games are a little bit different, and let's talk about help games real quick. Why not? So help games are rather simple. They usually have a very specific goal. Like, for instance, I might say help Ancients or help Anya, or, you know, help Act 2 or help Act 3 or something. I'm specifically requesting you to help me. Now, help games are not to be confused with rush games. A lot of the times when you ask for help for something, it's usually that. You're asking for help, you're not asking for somebody to do it for you. Now, sometimes they are asking you to do it for you. And usually you want to ascertain that before you begin helping. Are they asking you to go with them on the journey? Which is sometimes that's what these help games are. Like, for instance, if I were, say, Act 3 help, I might be asking for people to come with me on my Act 3 journey so that I'm not alone and so that it's easier. There is also the other alternative, which is I'm asking someone to please, for the love of God, get me out of Act 3 because I'm getting eaten alive by mosquitoes. I will take all waypoints. Please rush me. I don't care. However, this usually does not mean that they're asking you to rush them all the way to the end of, like, that difficulty setting or kill their bale or... Like, it's interesting, the dichotomy between a rush game and a help game. Help games are often asking you to complete one task, not necessarily doing the entire Monty, because they usually want to do those tasks themselves. It's akin to looking up like the answer to something in a video game when you're stuck. You don't want to know all the answers. You don't want to have everything spoiled to you. You just don't want to be stuck anymore. And that is definitely a very important thing with help games. You're just trying to get past what you're stuck on. If you're stuck on Ancients, then that's what you're asking for help with. If you're stuck with Anya, you can't get your Resistance quest done, then you're asking for help with Anya. There are tons of different help games that you're going to see as you go through. And a lot of the times it's the more difficult stuff that people have trouble with. We got a Gorse for trade. Sin Torch for Arachnid? What? Who's trading a Sin Torch for an Arachnid? That's not a good trade. D-Torch for 2 Ists. Gull for Ist Malum. Low Amatorch. I think O is offering, actually, now that I remember it. O is offering. I hope that this has been a little helpful for you guys out there who may not have known, like, the basic game types, and give you an idea of what people are looking for when you see those game types. And I hope that you guys will participate in more split MF games. I feel like split MF games are really one of the best things that you can do in this game for, like, getting better equipment and gear and gold and all sorts of things. Now, the only real downside to split MF games is that you have to be capable of Players 8 content. So if you're in a split MF game and there are 8 people in the game and you're off by yourself doing something, if you are not capable of completing Players 8 content, you're just going to have lots of trouble. Now, you can often do split MF games in groups. And this is kind of a dichotomy, right? So what are we doing by doing split MF games in groups? Well, let's say you have a friend, right? There's 2 of you or 3 of you, and you want to join a split MF game. That's fine too. the three of you can go do something together in the split MF game separate from everybody else. You don't have to participate with anybody in a split MF game, and there's also no hard and fast rule that you have to do things by yourself either. So just keep in mind that split MF games are absolutely great to bump that player count so that you can get better drops, more EXP, and quite honestly, just it's much more fun to play in the higher player counts than it is in the lower player counts. The P1 is so ridiculously easy for most players, it's not even funny. I kind of wish that they would just like shift the entire meta a little bit of the player counts so that like players 3 is players 1, and then players make like players 8 like players 9, 10, 11, make players 8 like players 11 or something, so that we can have a more of a challenge. Anyway, I hope you found this video interesting. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.